Okay, so polyvagal theory is really interesting because historically, when we have talked about fight-flight response and the autonomic nervous system, we've talked about it from a very binary perspective. So we used to think of it as just, oh, okay, like your sympathetic nervous system kicks in, and it's like a light switch. It turns on, all of the systems start kind of responding in a particular way. And then when the threat is processed or over, then we turn the light switch off, and then you go back into a rest state. And what polyvagal theory started to look at is whether or not there's a more complex view that we can take of the nervous system. And basically, what they found was that the autonomic nervous system, according to polyvagal theory, has three components that actually work in concert together. So it's not so binary. It's many, many degrees of um, of a spectrum of where the nervous system is actually how you're experiencing the nervous system. So the three components that we'll be looking at today is the ventral vagal system. So that is more active when you feel safe, connected. Um, you can experience empathy and security in this space. That's when the nervous system is quite relaxed. The sympathetic nervous system, that's probably what we're most familiar with, is the fight flight response. It's a way for us to mobilize the body to react and to respond to a situation. And so that's where a lot of us end up being when we have anxiety. That's the nervous system that gets activated when we have anxiety. And then there's this third component, which is really interesting, that if we are overwhelmed, if the sympathetic nervous system is overwhelmed and it cannot be sustained, then we go into this dorsal vagal system where we start to collapse. So this feeling of being numb, immobilized. And it's not just 100% in each thing. It's different percentages, different degrees that we're in this response to any given situation. So it's interesting that this shift from being a kind of binary off on switch to degrees of this kind of explains why we can still be functional and but still kind of experience this underlying anxiety or this underlying sense at times where we feel like we need to collapse after we get through whatever it is. It's because the sympathetic nervous system just got overwhelmed for like a extended period of time. And then when we have a space, it's just like, oof, like everything just starts to become numb or we collapse. And we have a tendency to do that. So I'm just going to read a little bit of a excerpt just so you have a better idea of what the vagus nerve is. Um, so the vagus nerve is the primary neural pathway for the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest pathway. So that's what we like, right? It's one of the 12 cranial nerves responsible for our basic survival, homeostasis, and social engagement. And the vagus nerve wanders through the body, linking together vital bodily systems and regions, respiratory system, circulatory system, and eliminatory system. So it's the largest nerve in the body, and it is responsible for a lot of stuff, basically. And so, why is this important for us? Is because when we experience trauma, big or small, that it's affecting the nervous system, and the nervous system can get stuck if we do not process it. right? So it's a lot of times this is where somatics come in, where we have tension or we have trauma that's being held in the body. It's affecting the nervous system. And then if we're not able to shift or process that, um, whatever that is within the nervous system, that we get stuck in a particular configuration of the nervous system that we can't release or we have trouble releasing. So that's why it's really important for us to relax. And what's really cool about polyvagal theory is that they have done a lot of research to figure out how to shift the nervous system from the sympathetic and the dorsal ventral systems back to this rest, safe, secure nervous system response. So we're going to do some of these exercises today. And what I'll invite you to do first is just to take a breath and just let yourself be in contact with the breath. And what I'll have you do, we're going to do a little test, actually a couple of tests, just for fun. So first, rotate your neck to the right and stop at the point where you feel resistance. So you don't need to force anything, but just rotate that and hold as far as it can comfortably go. And just notice where you have tension or where a strain starts to come in. And then rotate now your neck back to center. And then rotate your head to the left now as far as it'll go comfortably. And notice where the strain is there. And just see how far both sides can go. All right, and then come back to center. And then we're going to do another exercise for just to kind of see, or just for fun, is you take your pulse. And then when you just take a deep breath in and then a deep breath out. And you're just going to count the number of beats on your in breath and then count the number of beats on your out breath. This one's a little bit more tricky. And what we're going to look at is the number of beats. If the polyvagal theory says that the number of beats on your in breath should be greater than the number of beats on your out breath. And that's a sign that the ventral vagal system, the social, safe, secure nervous system, is operating correctly. It's a little subtle, but just something to play with throughout the day. It's just whenever you feel anxious or you feel relaxed, you can take your pulse and just see if that is actually true for you. All right, but we're going to do some exercises to release the nervous system. Okay, so we're going to shift whatever stress response is in the system. So what we're going to do is take your right hand and put it on top of your head and just gently pull that to the side to your right. And you don't have to force that at all. And then we're going to look to the left corner and we'll hold that for a minute. And just notice what your experience is as you're doing that. You're Vision might go a little blurry or reorient, but feel how it affects your body if there's any sort of subtle shifts that are happening. Maybe a yawn or sigh or swallow comes. Okay, 20 more seconds. Okay, and then just come back to center now. And we'll do the same thing on the left-hand side. And before we do that, just take a moment to feel how your body is just after doing the right side. Okay, and then we'll try doing the left. So gently pull to the left shoulder, and then you're looking to the right upper corner. And we'll hold for a minute. Yeah, just notice your breath, and as you're doing it, to remind yourself to breathe. Okay, and then come back to center. Just feel how your body is now. All right. Yeah, good. If you're yawning, that's a good sign. It's a good sign because it's a sign that okay, your system is shifting a little bit. All right, so we're gonna do a an exercise just to see how this is when we're in a heightened anxiety state. So I'd like you to just think of a situation where you recently have experienced anxiety. And on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most anxious and really highly charged, I would say like choose something that's like a 5 or a 6, so you're not completely overwhelmed. But we're just going to kind of sense into how your body responds to this exercise. So just raise your hand when you're like thumbs up or something when you've got your situation. Okay. Adam, do you need a little more time? You got it. Thumbs up. Okay. All right. So feel how your body feels in response to that situation. And then what we're going to do is do the same thing. We'll take the top of the head, right hand, and this time we're going to take the left hand and pull on your right rib as you're tilting. And then upper left hand corner, look up, and still sort of be in contact with that situation where you experienced that anxiety. Okay. And then we're going to do it on the opposite side. Still being in contact with the situation where you're feeling a little nervous or anxious. So this time, left hand on top, right hand on the left rib. So gently pulling your head to the left, and then just letting your right hand have some pressure on your left rib, and then eyes to the right corner. And just sense if there's any subtle shifts in the body, maybe a little deeper breathing or some kind of uh, some kind of relaxation that might happen, just a subtle release. Again, still being in contact with the situation that you were in. And then when you're ready, you can come back. All right, and then we'll do one last one. And still being in contact with visualizing yourself in that situation, you're going to interlace your fingers like that, and then just put it back to hold the base of your skull. And then we're going to look at your right elbow first. So eyes to the right, and just gentle. You don't need to force anything, but you're just going to hold that gaze to the right hand side. We'll do that for about 30 seconds or so. So what this is starting to do is to release the sympathetic nervous system and the dorsal vagal. And then we're going to do the same thing. We'll shift to the left and just hold your gaze to the left elbow. And if your arms get tired, you can just put them down. That's fine. We'll hold for about another 20 seconds. And again, notice where your body is. Okay, and bring yourself back and just take a moment to feel your body. So what they say, these are exercises to do not just when anxiety levels are high, but on a daily basis for just, that even just doing something like that takes a minute, right? Like you hold 30 seconds on one side, 30 seconds on the other side, 2 minutes a day. It builds our capacity to release the nervous system and shift it back into the ventral the ventral vagal. So back into rest state. And there's a lot of ways that we're going to do that, which is what we're going to get into next.